Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the newest episode of Music Theory Mondays. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be discussing the diminished triad in relation to its ability to replace the 5 chord of whatever key you're in its goal of resolution back to the 1 chord. All right? I would like you to stay tuned to the end of the video, because I'm going to give specific information as to why this is possible. But first, let's jump in and get to the actual chords, okay? We're going to do in the key of C, we're going to do a C chord as the 1 chord. And then we're going to throw in a D7. All right, now the D7 is the 5 chord in the key of G. So in the key of C, the D7 is functioning as a secondary dominant. It's the 5 of 5. Now what we're going to do after that D7 is play a G7, which is acting as a resolution for the D7, and then we'll bring it back home to C. All right, so we have 1 in C, we have the D7, which is the 5 of 5, resolving to the 5 of C, which is G7, and then back to the 1 chord. Sounds good, right? So 1, 5 of 5, 5, back to 1 in the key of C. Now, fast forward here to the point of this video, which is we're going to use the diminished triad to resolve this chord progression back to C. We're going to substitute out that G7. So we're replacing the G7 with the B diminished triad. All right, so here we go. We're starting with C, and we'll do that D7 again. 5 of 5. Now I'm going to play a B diminished. We'll go again. We got the C to the D7. All right, here's our D7. 5 of 5. But we're not going to play the 5 chord. We're going to play that B diminished chord and right back to C. So you can hear that resolution. So that B diminished, which is the 7th chord in the major key, is bringing us back and resolving us back to the 1 chord. Usually that's the job of the 5 chord, right? I'm going to do one more variation of this where I'm going to change the voicing of the 1 chord. So it's going to be, instead of going down to the diminished and up to the 1 chord, we'll go C major. There's your D7 again. Now we've got your B diminished, and I'm going to move it to the first inversion for that 1 chord. So instead of C, E, G, it's E, G, C. One more time so you can hear the transition. All right, very smooth. Nice segue back home. All right, now let's get to how this is possible. How could such an ugly, unstable, awkward chord be responsible for such an important job of resolving the chord progression back to the 1 chord? Usually that's the 5 chord, right? The 5 chord does a fabulous job of resolving. But now we're doing the diminished chord back to the 1 chord. They both work. I will admit that the G7 flows better. But here's what's interesting, and this is the whole point of this video I wanted to get across to you. The 5 chord and the 7 chord are both dominant function chords. Now, anytime you hear the word dominant, you want to think responsible for resolving, right? So what does the 5 chord do? It resolves back home to the 1 chord. The 5 chord and the 7 chord, which is that diminished triad, are both part of that dominant chord family, all right? So you could technically use either of those to resolve, as I've demonstrated. And the secret here as to why it's so close is because if you take a look at the notes of a G7, you have GBDF. If you take a look at the notes of a B diminished triad, you have BDF. Okay, so herein lies the secret. All you're doing is removing the root note of your 5 chord and then changing the bass note to B. All right, so here's your G7 in full with the G and the bass. And now I'm going to move the bass to B and get rid of the G altogether. And there's your B diminished triad. All right, so both chords come from the same family. They're both dominant function. They both share an insane amount of common tones, right? And so this switch is made possible by that very simple fact. All right, very cool stuff. Please stay tuned. In the future, there will be more diminished chord videos going forward. Please like, please subscribe. If you feel like buying me a cup of coffee, there's a link in the description. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.